you always can rebound. You always can grow. You can always learn. People giving me different advices, and none was right or none was wrong. I just had to figure out what was right for me. And so I took an opportunity to actually stop running an office and actually close the office down to go and learn from people that were better at the things I needed to learn at.
What a great story. Being an entrepreneur, I wish it was up and to the right and super easy and there were no challenges, but we know that that's not true. What have you faced along the way and how did you overcome those things?
If I would have known an advice that would have made things a little easier, I don't know if I would have listened to it back then. I will say, I think the most important piece of advice that I've learned is you have to believe. You have to have confidence. You have to, at the end of the day, no matter what is going on, you have a great attitude.
I'm super excited. I'm here today talking to organizational consultant Chris Auwarter. Thank you for coming to hang out with us. I'm just going to get right into it. Is that okay? All right. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
Your journey, what inspired you to start?
Yeah. So I grew up in a really small town. We have more cows than people in my hometown. My high school graduating class was 5. I don't know if you do that or not, but no, it's valedictorian. So, beat the other 4 people. It was awesome. But, both my parents were teachers. Most of my friends growing up, they were dairy farmers. So our summers consisted of getting chores done and feeding the cows and shoveling manure quick enough so we could get out and play some soccer. And blessed, fortunately, with a photographic memory. So studying in school was really easy, got straight A's. And when it came time to graduate high school and then figure out the next journey, maybe into college, my parents had to sit down with me and explain financially they have no money when it comes to paying for college. And I figured, no problem. I'm going to get a scholarship to play soccer. I was really good. Well, when you're in a school of 70 kids, kindergarten through 12, by the time you're a senior, you should be pretty good. And that didn't really translate to any offers or scholarships. And so my dad just sat me down and said, before you go to school, figure out what it is that you want to do with your life so you don't spend 5 and 6 years in a ton of debt. And so I said, okay. So I got a job like most people working at a restaurant. A year later, my uncle came to me with an opportunity working in the automotive industry, and they moved me to Toronto to basically oversee 40 people. We were inspecting these car parts, and I got promoted very quickly at 19 years old to management, which really just involved making sure they didn't mess anything up at the factory. And that was in August. January, I got a phone call saying the project was being moved to Detroit, so you can come home. I thought about, what my next probably promotion was going to be. In reality, I got laid off. And that kind of opened up my eyes to, I guess, a corporate job because, again, with my parents both being teachers, they always had their jobs. My friends, their parents always worked on the dairy farms. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. So my dad encouraged me to move away from home because there's not a lot of opportunities in a small town. My youth pastor's wife had moved to Charlotte when I was in high school. They had a spare bedroom. They said, you can come crash with us. And my dad was like, get into sales. He's like, no matter what you do in life, learn how to communicate. So I briefly took a job selling insurance, did it for 5 weeks. I sold 2 people and one was myself. So I wasn't really thinking I was great at selling, but it cost me $75 and I made $200 in commission. So I was like, score, I have insurance. So I made $125. And after that, I realized things like rent were due. And so I needed to start looking for a different job. And I walked into Brandy Park's office and interviewed on a Monday, offered the job, started on Tuesday. By Friday, I was closing my own sales, and 3 months later had the opportunity to then move with her to Atlanta, Georgia. And I think that's when I really got excited about what the opportunity was. Before I was just making money. I had to pay my mom back a lot of money from the lack of money I made selling insurance and having to pay rent. So I hustled in the field. I was really good early on at that piece. I saw my leader, Michael, get promoted in 6 months to assistant management. So I was like, well, that's the next step for me. Whatever I was asked to do, I did, whether it meant going out of town on a business trip, whether it meant, just working on a new program. Back then, we didn't have a lot of programs. We basically had one. We're trying a few other things and just, seeing if it worked out. And that's kind of, I guess, where I started. I never really thought back to anything except for moving forward. And I think part of it was, growing up in that small town, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I was just really looking for great people, and that's what I found here. And that's what I got really excited about early on, and just kind of kept like plugging away at it until I got better, until I grew. So that's,
How did I not know that?
I don't know.
This is so great. So what do you love?
So early on, I was just the people, right? Like when I was at the restaurant, I was the youngest person there, and everybody hated their jobs. Like everybody, all the servers, they complained about people not tipping enough, and it was just one thing or another. I had this one gal named Penny, though. She was like the prep cook, and I took over her job when she got promoted to management. And she was the one being like, Chris, do not make this permanent like me. At this point in my life, I need to do this, but like you're young enough, just kind of come in and grow. And so when I got to Toronto, there was an older gentleman there as well too that kept taking me under the wings. He was probably in his 50s at that time. And I remember him always looking at the wall where it was days until the last accident. And I never got past like 20 before somebody got hurt. And he's like, don't do this. So I was like, okay, good lesson there as well too. And when I started, the thing that I found that I loved was the genuineness of people. And then ultimately I could make as much money as I wanted. Growing up, money was never something that we lacked, but nothing that we had. If that made sense. We always had things, but we didn't really have anything like massive. And I remember just being able to talk with Michael. He was probably the first one that really helped me believe in accomplishing big things. I don't know if you remember the story, but one night when we were in Atlanta, we were out playing tennis, and we both were awful at it, so we quit, and we just started like talking about goals, and it got kind of crazy where he was talking about one day owning a yacht, and I was like, I'll own a helicopter that will land on your yacht. And I never thought like that before. When I was really young, my parents always told me I could accomplish anything I want. My dad was my soccer coach growing up, but he made me work hard and believe in myself. But it wasn't necessarily something that I don't know if I actually believed until I saw it. The genuineness of people, but at the same time, how you could do it and not actually grow opportunities and be able to provide that for yourself and then be able to do it with your best friends. And I think that was really cool.
That's so cool. I mean, what a great story. Being an entrepreneur, I wish it was up and to the right and super easy and there were no challenges, but we know that that's not true. What have you faced along the way, and how did you overcome those things?
Yeah, so when I first ran my office, I was still 20 years old. I think I was 6 weeks before I turned 21. And early on, I just wanted everybody to like me. And I had to learn a lesson about balance when it came to respect and expectations with people. You could still have the personal relationships, but making sure you establish professional relationships first. And I think that was my first lesson along the way that I had to do. And I got good at that. And then I traveled a lot and was in New York for a while. And, I thought I'd like that because it was closer to where I grew up. But New York City is a whole different ballgame than my hometown, the small country part of New York. And when I was there, one of the lessons that I really had to learn was to be tough. And people are there different than people in the South, people in the Midwest, or anything like that. And I learned that it was okay to ask for help. And I remember specifically at that time I wasn't happy, and I had a couple different people giving me different advices, and none was right or none was wrong. I just had to figure out what was right for me. And so I took an opportunity to actually stop running an office and actually close the office down to go and learn from people that were better at the things I needed to learn at. And I think that it could have been easy when things got hard just to like throw in the towel or quit. Maybe look for a path that was easier than entrepreneurship, that like, hey, you just get a salary and you clock in, you clock out, no responsibilities, no thinking at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up being like, how can I come through for my team? Like happens now. But I was very grateful that I knew I had people around me that cared about me, and that regardless of where I was at that moment, I don't think my goals ever really changed about being able to help provide opportunity for other people, which meant getting on the track again for a consultant and, opening up as many offices as possible. And the thing that I think is important that I learned then is it helps me relate to people now when they struggle, because no matter what, people quit on your team or whatever it is, you always can rebound. You always can grow. You can always learn from those things. And so, now it's like you hit a challenge along the way, recruiting or developing or whatever it is. It's refreshing to know that there's always going to be somebody who has your back and that can teach you that lesson you need to learn, and that you don't have to have all the answers yourself.
That's great.
So,
That's great. So how do you think you've evolved personally, professionally?
yeah. Well, I think personally, I was very, and I still am, quiet in certain settings, I think, especially when I'm around people that I have respect for, or that I value their opinion. But I think I have learned to become more outspoken for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I even think of a conversation I had with somebody last week where I said, I'm just saying, okay, I get it. I say, I get your decision, but this is how I feel and this is how I look at it. So I think I've just really had to learn, how to be able to do that. But I think that's both personally and professionally,
Yep.
right? Because, as a person and stuff like that, I realized at a young age that my younger brother really looked up to me, and it made me live my life in a way where I didn't make excuses, because if I made excuses, it would justify that he could do it too. And even though he's in a different industry, it doesn't matter. So I had to learn how to be able to go through and do things I'm proud of and live a way that you don't know who's watching at any moment. So you've got to live in a life that way. I think part of that is that confidence to stand up for yourself and what you believe in, and being able to share that and to share your thoughts without being afraid.
You've had quite a bit of success as you think about development today. How do you continue to develop yourself?
I think some things that I just focus on is my routine. So personally for myself, I've gone through a lot of inconsistencies with my health.
Okay.
I'll just talk about that, for example, right?
Okay.
Because I think that's part of development. And when I'm consistent with those pieces, like eating well, getting rest, working out, exercising, taking time to like get my mind right, everything else fixes itself when it comes to confidence and all. So I think like everything's got to start with there. I like to read books, but I wouldn't say like, I'm just like, what's the next book I'm going to pick up? I try to get through one a month, but what I do is I'll do it while I'm riding my Peloton bike. Like I'll just, every Saturday, try to do like an hour where just you ride, and I listen to something to feed my mind that way.
That's great.
But the way I learn most, I think, is just like listening to podcasts and making sure that I'm always getting information from others. I feel like I'm really bad at coming up with creative ideas, but I'm really good at learning and then implementing them, and maybe even sometimes improving. At least I like to think improving on ideas. So I just want to constantly like listen to these over and over again. Dave Anderson is one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you which ones. Okay.
And like, it's like some of the one-liners he has, and he says it over and over again. And for me, it's like, if I hear it one time, I might remember it, but after I hear it 5 or 6 times, it starts becoming part of like who I am. But I think the biggest thing is what I talked about at first. It's just personal discipline, making sure that getting up early every single day, which sometimes, when you have days you don't have to get up early, it's kind of annoying when you still wake up early.
Yep.
But you know what? You get more done, and you can feel good, and you can feel accomplished about it. And that's really what I'm focused on right now for growth.
Okay. Everybody says like what's the one piece of advice you'd wish you'd known in the beginning, or what's the one thing that you'd wish you'd known that would have, been helpful to you, or what's a piece of advice you would have given 20-year-old Chris?
That's hard for me to say. And the only reason I say that is because if I hadn't gone through certain experiences, like if I would have known an advice that would have made things a little easier, I don't know if I would have listened to it back then. But I will say, like, I think the most important piece of advice that I've learned is you have to believe. You have to have confidence. You have to, like, at the end of the day, no matter what is going on, you have a great attitude. And I felt like I've always had a pretty good attitude, but it's having to have that assurance time and time and time again when you get knocked down, that, hey, you know what, everything's going to be okay. Nothing is never as bad as it seems. Nothing is ever as good as it seems. And if you just stay through the journey, you're always going to learn the lessons you need to along the way, and it's going to help you grow.
Yeah, one of my good friends always says nothing's permanent.
Yeah.
Nothing is permanent. Not the good, the bad. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, like I said, you've had quite a bit of success. So as you look forward, what are some goals that you have or things that you're driving towards? What do you want to accomplish, let's say next 5, 10, 15 years?
So on a business level, one of the biggest things I want to accomplish within those years is I want to get as many people on my team into consultant. Right? Like we got some guys that like are already there, like Mateo, some guys that are close, guys that probably aren't even owners yet that in 10 years are going to be consultants, right? Like, because I know when that happens, everything else takes care of itself from a business standpoint of me hitting my milestones, hitting those goals. Personally, so my wife loves to travel. I think she definitely puts me outside of my comfort zone when it comes to that. She's got like just 2 more states for all 50. So now
Wow.
to her, I've got a couple more that she does. But like this year, Wisconsin, believe it or not, is one for both her and I, as well as North Dakota. So those 2 are going to do it. She'll be done. I still have a few others as well, like Oregon. I don't know. I've never had a reason to go there.
Me neither.
Love that. And I just like love to travel outside the country too, because every time I travel and then come back, I'm always learning lessons, whether it be appreciation sometimes for what we have, towards trying different things. Growing up, for example, very basic American food, cheeseburgers, pizza,
French fries.
like didn't really get out of that. And then going to different places and trying different foods and just having those experiences. So like that's really my big why or my big goal now is to travel. And, especially I love the opportunities in the past that I've had to do with really close friends, especially close friends in the business, and being able to do more of those and helping bring those people along and having them create those experiences. That's really a big part of my goals over the next 5 to 10 years is help as many people as possible be able to experience things that are cool.
Do you have a bucket list? Like, do you guys have, hey, these are our top 3 places we want to go in the world, or?
So we've done a lot of Europe. I want to go back to some of the places, but Laura doesn't necessarily want to do that. She's like, been in that country. I haven't been in that part of Spain yet, right? But Argentina is on there for sure.
Cololo, for sure.
Yeah. Iceland. But the problem with Iceland that I found for Dallas, the flights at least, I have to fly like either to, I think it's Denmark or something, and then back, at least on the airline that we fly on. Maybe we'll have to change up the airline. But there's like direct from Dallas is very common in most places. But like going back, I think it was like actually like Finland or something that was really weird. Iceland there and then back. And it's like, that's out of the way.
Totally.
Like maybe Scotland first or Portugal and then Argentina. Definitely Iceland is on the list though too.
It's on my list too. I want to see those lights. Yeah. Who's been the most influential person in your life?
I don't think I can say just one. I'd say like from a young age, my parents for different reasons, like my dad, I mentioned earlier, was my soccer coach growing up. The thing that he really taught me was like, he made it hard on me because I was his son, everybody else on the team. He wanted to make sure there was no favoritism. The thing I didn't appreciate early on was very practice. He made me work twice as hard as everybody else. But in the games, I was a little bit more fit, a little bit more prepared. So the lessons that really taught me, like growing up, obviously, that I could take into like business and stuff was just like, you push yourself harder than anybody else and you're going to get better results. And he really got me around, even though like, financially it wasn't like a ton of money. He got me around some people that had made some money and that influenced how I thought before I started about setting goals. That was big. My mom, which today's her birthday as well too. She gives everybody a million chances, like even when they don't deserve it. Sometimes it bothers me because it's like, no, but like it's that heart, right? It's that care. So those two obviously growing up. And then I will say one thing about John. He always knows the right time to say things to me when I need it. When I got onto the retail campaign, I was in the field a lot and I'm a big football fan, love football. And I was in the field on a Sunday and I just closed an app and I felt good. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go back home and watch football. And I think he and my wife were talking. I can't prove this, but I get a text at the same time, almost roughly up. I told her, I was like, yeah, I got 1 minute. I'm going to come watch the game. And he's like, how's it going? And I said, good, I just closed one. He's like, that's awesome. He's like, well, Matt Ryan, who was the quarterback of the Falcons, he was on my fantasy team that year. It's like he would do one But Drew Brees, who was my other quarterback and my favorite player, he'd do 3. And I remember reading that text and I was like, I can't leave now.
I'm not going home to watch football.
It's like, I want to, and nobody would know differently. But, it's just like, I don't know. There's certain times like that he's just there. When I was in New York, he was a big piece of my decision that I made as well, too. But there's so many people like beyond that you just take the bits and pieces from, I think, that have made a big impact for sure.
What would you tell like newer people in the business about coaching, mentoring, finding a right coach or mentor? What would you tell them?
I think when it comes to finding the right mentor, find somebody who is going to push you and believe in you and care about you. Even I think that my best mentors, the people that help me, whether it be Brandy, Adam, you, Gary, I mean, they're going to tell you what you need to hear, not just what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's really important, is making sure someone who's honest as you're learning how to coach and develop others is, I know you're a big Ted Lasso fan, like I am as well too, and Gary is the other. It's about being curious, right? Be curious, not judgmental. When you're coaching people, ask a lot of questions. Just kind of find out how you could help them. At the end of the day, you're not going to have all the right answers. It's okay to tell people I don't know, or it's really okay when you react versus coach to go back and say, I apologize. I shouldn't have said it that way. This is what I meant to say. Let's work on this together. And I think like as a coach, I have to do that a lot. I have to work on empathy. It's not a strength of mine and I know it. And there's a lot of times that I'll say things, either I'll realize it or more times than not, my wife will realize and be like, do you know how you sounded on that phone call? You might want to call him back. And
oh, wow.
You're right. And so like as a coach, you don't have to be perfect, but just realize when you make mistakes coaching people, like own up to them as well too. So that way that respect and that relationship is there, because that relationship is everything in coaching.
What a great feedback loop you have there, like a partner, to be able to point that out to you and be okay pointing that out to you and saying,
tell me.
That's so great.
She's somewhere in one of the rooms and she's like, who are you talking to? So, it's good. It's important to have that type of person in your life, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. That honesty. Yeah, I think it's really important. I have some fun questions for you. You ready? All-time favorite book, movie, song?
All 3?
All 3.
Okay. So movie, I like the movie Tin Cup. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
With Kevin Costner? Yeah. And what's her name? Renee Russo? Renee?
Not so bad with
I think it is.
But it's like you're against your adversity. You mess up a lot of stuff. And then, he's on that last hole and he keeps hitting it in the water, but he doesn't give up. And he just keeps hitting it. And it's just, to me, I remember watching that as a kid and it was just like, man, this guy just doesn't quit. So I love that. Song, Jason Aldean, The Only Way I Know That was my song when I got promoted. And most of the time when I go out there, especially because it talks about getting soaked in the rain, getting hot in the sun, don't quit till the job's done. Like that's the feel. Like how many times I got rained on, sweat through my shirt, like work late, things like that. Favorite book, there's a lot, but one of the books that made a big impact on me was when I read The Oz Principle. It just talks about thinking above the line versus below the line. And I think what hit me on that one specifically was my experience from GM, because it talks about the different, car manufacturers, and it talks about how Ford, at least at the time the book was written, was the most accountable. And even the CEO walking through, the factory, if something needed to be done, you just did the job. And
I haven't read the book.
Yeah, I think I read it right the year before I got promoted to consultant, and it just made a big impact on me. Cannot tell you the name of the author at all.
That's okay. I'll look it up. The Oz Principle. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
If you could collaborate with any person, living or dead, on a project, who would it be and why?
I would say, okay, so my company is named after my grandmother. She passed away when I was 8, but she was the cafeteria lady at a school, right? And she was the sweetest person ever. I don't even know what the project would be, but I was so young. I'd love to do something with her, right? Like I don't care what it is, just be able to have some time and, things like that, I think would be really cool.
That does sound cool. Really cool. Do you have a hidden talent or skill that people might not know about?
Well, if you ask Gary, I'm really good at fantasy football. Prepared for it. I might not agree or not like that answer, but I love sports. I love football.
How many times have you won that
I
thing?
won 3 times. So as many championships as John's team.
And isn't it like insane all day?
Yeah, we've dropped for all day long, 18 hours in a room sometimes.
That's wild. Okay. All right.
I don't know if that's really a talent or not.
I think it's a talent. I mean, I couldn't do it. It's your birthday on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah.
No fools, baby.
My brother too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother too. What's your guilty pleasure when it comes to entertainment or indulgence or?
Besides any sporting event, just watching that. I mean, my wife, she can't stand how much soccer I like to watch that. That's the one thing too, because she's into football with me. Like she knows that she could probably win the fantasy football league if we let her in as well too.
Really?
She's really good at that too. But soccer, I love soccer.
Soccer, like American soccer or overseas soccer?
More overseas soccer. So when we went to Spain, a couple years ago, we went to El Clasico, and it was just unreal. And for her not loving soccer, when she gets in the stadium and the emotions around it, she's like, this is not like it is watching it in America. I was like, no, this is nothing like that as well too. And
it's like football, I think, over there, right? It's like how we feel about football.
They made us say who we were rooting for. We were in Barcelona. And I thought that was funny because like, what do they do with the Madrid fans? And I guess they had a separate entrance for them because of the rivalry and just the passion that they had there. So yeah, I watch a lot of Barcelona soccer games.
Okay. Are you a Messi fan?
I do like Messi, yeah.
All right. All right. What's one thing on your bucket list that you're determined to accomplish?
Okay, so we talked about travel a lot already. There's a lot about this in business, right? Like I am determined to get to senior and even, senior executives. Like I've been doing this and, I love running an office right now. I've been doing it for a long time, but every day when I come into my team and seeing people that are inspired, like that means that I've helped a lot of other people. And that's really going to be a cool moment.
I love that.
Tail not getting promoted together would be really pretty cool.
It would be cool. Thanks. Yeah. If you had a superpower for a day, what would it be? How would you use
I
it?
want to read people's minds. I don't know why, but I would love to be able to know what other people are thinking.
Why though?
I think,
Like, what would you do with it?
what would I do with it? I would just try to help give better advice and just I don't know. Sometimes when I'm sitting there and I'm having a conversation with somebody, I just want to know what they're thinking, especially when the coaching doesn't seem to be working, and just trying to figure it out and trying to understand more than anything else.
If you're stranded on a desert island, what 3 items do you want to have with
I'd
you?
probably have my phone with me. My wife would probably throw it in the water if she was there as well too. I need a good bottle of bourbon with me as well too. We're stranded, and it'll make everything a little bit more fun. Maybe even some short barrel bourbon from Adam as well too. And the third thing, I don't know, something to listen to some good music as well too.
I love that. I love it. I want to say thank you. Thanks for taking the time. It's not, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming out here, and I appreciate you doing this with me.
It was fun.
Yeah.